Hello everyone, wishing a very warm Sunday and a great week ahead to all of you present here. The COVID-19 pandemic has obviously not been too kind to us. We are going through dramatic and drastic changes in the past year due to this situation. Like any other aspect of a country, architecture and architectural education will go through a humongous change as well. Pandemic has impacted the UCT spaces in such a way that none of us could have ever imagined. However, if there's anything our history has shown us, it's that we learn and adapt. We need to understand the changing needs and morph our spaces in such a way that they could function even in a situation like this. I am Shabrinath, and on behalf of 361 Bit, would like to extend a very warm welcome to all of you present here. Appreciate you taking time off your busy schedules to join with us for this seminar, Rethinking the Spaces. Today we have with us the esteemed presence of architect PERSI Engineer. He has pursued Masters in Town and Regional Planning and has over 26 years of experience as an academician. He is also principal at the Faculty of Architecture SCET. He has also been appointed by the Government of India as Independent Director of Surat Smart City Development Limited under the Smart Cities Mission. Architect PERSI was also head of SCET Research and Design Cell, which has successfully completed many Tourism Corporation of Gujarat Limited projects like Saputra Master Plan, Tabi Riverfront, and many others. We are honored by your presence here, sir, and I'm handing over the stage to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shabrinath. And shall we go ahead with the presentation?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you all see the presentation?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, so hello and greetings to all of you, and especially all those involved in 361-bit. My greetings to all of you. When I got this invite from you all, I was actually wondering what this 361-bit is all about, and I did some research on it, and what I was amazed with and what I was really happy with is to see all young people on the board who are actually into consultancy of education. So I think I can say the future is in safe hands because the young people have taken the reins in their hand to kind of see to it that education has great future. So let me compliment all the young people on the board of 361-bit. And here I go. I'm being introduced as Professor PERSI Engineer. Let me tell you, I was the principal of Faculty of Architecture, but now I am the provost of Sarvajanik University. And we have just become a university by the state of Gujarat. And I am the provost of Sarvajanik University. And once again, I would like to compliment 361-bit for their great effort to uplift the architecture profession and academics in these challenging times of pandemic. In this session, I would like to spark a discussion on one of the most needed topic, and that is rethinking the spaces of post-pandemic exigency, that is changing paradigms of architecture, education, and profession. Coronavirus pandemic is proving to be a paradigmatic shift in our lifestyles. Everyone is forced to adopt new realities, imposing drastic adjustments to our lives. The coronavirus has introduced the new normal, changing our perceptions and altering our priorities. Driven towards questioning and evaluating our environment, we are constantly reacting and anticipating a relatively unknown future. While we cannot foresee the future, we can certainly create logical analogies that are based on current situations as our first immediate response to the pandemic. Architects around the world have put their knowledge to the use in the fight against coronavirus and have created innovative solutions for the future. Many are working on creation of new facilities and many on adaptive reuse of non-functional structures. As healthcare infrastructure is overwhelmed and the facilities are saturated, architects are focusing on fast and efficient design solutions, proposing flexible, fast-assembled, mobile, and simple structures. Many have converted shipping containers into intensive care units consist of movable, safe units. Building with different programs like stadiums, convention centers are now also converted into hospitals. The adaptive reuse alternative was implemented all over the world, and we have seen this adaptive reuse happening all over the world. Friends, architecture cannot save the world, though it may mitigate some of the problems. We expect the built environment to become different as we learn to live with the virus. Notions of health, personal and public mobility, transportation, biophilia will need to be integrated. Hence, an interdisciplinary approach with collaborative efforts of experts will now be certainly necessary. Future projects with emergency architecture, that is crisis architecture, will come into focus along with sustainable practices. This crisis architecture will provide design solutions in the near future on disease and disaster mitigation. Adaptive reuse provides an economical, fast, and sustainable solution to capacity building. Rethinking of our spaces with the pandemic raging, we are forced to weigh the benefits and danger of crossing the threshold between the private and public spaces, between the indoors and the outdoors. How should we reconcile to our old fantasies of erasing our boundaries? In architecture, we have always talked about erasing the boundaries between the indoors and outdoors. So my question now is going to be, how should we reconcile to our old fantasies of erasing our boundaries? What happens to our desire for spaces that allow spontaneous social interactions? Many architects' friends are now questioning and rethinking the city. Densification and mass transit system, considered a solution to the urban problems, are now actually proving to be the major disease transmission risk in this pandemic. We strongly believe that our cities need to be dense, connected to avoid problems of car-based cultures. We dreamt of an urban life of fluid, multi-generational communities integrating rather than isolating the elders. Yet, COVID-19 has threatened this dream of all of us. But now, after the lockdown, as we edge closer to the parapets of our houses or our balconies, we glance suspiciously at people when we meet them in our apartment corridors. The moment we see a stranger, we actually think twice, should we shake hands with him? Should we go close to him? We, in fact, even at times cross the street, avoid talking to an acquaintance. We now avoid carpooling and mass transit networks. Suddenly, friends, I'm making a big statement now, suddenly all our heroism of saving the environment has gone for a toss. And as the pandemic continues, can we not seize the opportunity to transform our old hierarchies? Must we continue to waver between irrelevant Western options of twin cities, old city core regeneration, walkable cities, cyclable cities? Isn't it time to undertake projects larger than walkable cities and energy efficient buildings? And that is what I'm talking about, rethinking the home and offices. As we hodl home from our offices, we have to revisit our old configuration of 2 BHK and 3 BHK houses, with home doubling up as office with work from home mode. We have all experienced that we are now using our homes also as our offices, and therefore remaining indoors, we are actually forced to rethink of our requirements and our needs. Privacy and the quietude are completely missed in our homes. The buildings that we live in offer little sense of comfort, safety, or sustenance. The architects today must grapple with the thought that the profession has lost touch with the public's understanding of what a built environment is supposed to be. As mass design group leader, architect Michael Murphy says, "This is one of our greatest existential moments in the built environment." I'm repeating. This is one of our great existential moments in the built environment. The built environment is now threatening us. The pandemic offers unique opportunity and some true questions of accountability and ethics for all of us about what we built, about what we have already built, and what do we now need to invest in the future. This intersects with the questions of ethics, morality, and equity. Architects need to change to a service profession, not approaching project to be solved with steel, concrete, glass, but as a social problem that needs that demand wider, more holistic solution. Focusing on health-oriented approach, new standards are going to be set with wholesome indoor environments, natural ventilation, green balconies, and biophilic covers. With work from home mode, friends, corporate offices, and all our workplaces are rethinking in their existing service offerings. They are looking at how office space will be structured now on. With digital working method in place, the normative model of where and how a task is completed is completely upset. Now it is not important whether you are actually sitting in your office and doing your work, because most of us have learned this new paradigm that work can be completed even while traveling, work can be completed even while you are at home. And therefore some immediate change point to a physically smaller and more secure workplaces with fewer desks and fewer workstations per employee. And this will also directly relate to hiring, managing existing teams, leveraging individual talent to protect profits and reduce risks. Friends, most of the worldwide survey indicates that more than 65% of our workforce expect to work in a hybrid manner now on. This provides best of both, going flexibility and support to the family, while physical office is the best place to connect, collaborate, and socialize with others. This is essential to be aware of just how much a built environment impacts our behavior. A physical space will continue to play a key role in life of employees and the work they produce together. However, it will be important to remember that it will become mandatory for designers to assess how an office culture needs to be transformed in order for the company to sustain success in the new world of work. The pandemic has greatly impacted the education sector too. Around 32 crore learners in schools and colleges have stopped attending physical classes. COVID-19 accelerated the adoption of digital technologies to deliver education. New ways of assessment and delivery opened opportunities for major curriculum development and teaching pedagogies. Collaborative teaching and learning across the world has happened due to webinars, virtual meets, and conferencing. Education is now not limited to the four walls of the colleges, but now you can have an access to the brains across the globe outside the four walls of your classroom. The pandemic has resulted in increased digital literacy. I will repeat this statement. The pandemic has actually resulted in increased digital literacy. But my friends, there is a downside too. Only 24% of households have access to internet according to the 2019 Government of India survey. And the figure is as low as 4% in rural India. Like the rest, even architecture schools are now forced to put aside face-to-face learning and move to online teaching. Starting April 2020, everything, I repeat, everything had to be structured, planned, and done differently in a short period of 3 weeks. Each one of us had to come up with a different innovative method to continue online teaching. And suddenly, for all these years, while we believed that architecture cannot be taught online, to that extent, that distance education was prohibited in architecture by Council of Architecture, had to actually send in a circular to the institution that please continue your education by online method. This actually means that this pandemic had created situations for big paradigm change even in architecture education. So the model evolved of conventional education over so many decades required an abrupt change, and the scene remains fluid even today. Maybe we can use the pandemic to question the old deliverables and topple the old pedagogies. We actually are now questioning that why did for so many years we kept on saying that online education or distance education in architecture is not possible, because we've been doing since 1.5 years, and we cannot say that it is not doing a great job. Online education is also doing a great job, just if you keep don't look at the downside of poor connectivity in the rural part of this country. But we need to now explore the possibilities to shift from an education delivery system, which is able to meet the need of the profession, to an education creation system. While we have to go in for this blended model, it will become very important that we actually shift our whole effort of education from delivery system to education creation system, where the graduates create opportunities for themselves through various resources and mechanisms. The effort must be now to offer students multiple learnings through various modalities and transform them from passive listeners to active learners. I would like to repeat to this word that we need to now have this complete transformation of students from passive listeners to active learners. And this is most challenging task. To embed the self-learning in the youth is going to take more than just the programs, modules, or studio exercises. We are not going to develop this culture of self-learning in the youth by the conventional programs that we had of modules or studio exercises. Many teachers who are into teaching architecture will agree with this hard truth that we face severe challenges in this online mode. Challenges like access to specialized software from homes, high-speed internet or broadband at our homes, and also at homes of the students, specialized computers for modeling, internship and trainings are limited because of online education patterns only, and of course, lack of online infrastructure, adequate home environments that don't support teaching or learning. The key finding of study of COVID impact on architecture students of 25 universities by the University of Bath revealed that the satisfaction of learning fell by 58% in this online mode. This is quite alarming, that the satisfaction with learning on an online mode fell by 58%. Peer learning and support was negatively affected. Only 7% students and 4% faculty preferred remote delivery. The mental health impacted from isolation and lack of meaningful interaction was also missed by all. Most students recognize the social nature of architecture education and recognize the studio's physical environment as a necessity of architecture learning. No one knows if this situation will revert to pre-pandemic conditions or whether the atypical will eventually become the usual. As teachers, we must recognize that schools must become adaptive systems and should embed the change and have the flexibility. Adaptation as part of curriculum structure, design studio practices, and teaching learning processes. In the initial 6 months, when we immediately took over to online teaching, our thinking was focused on how to operate. But with now more than 1.5 years of online teaching, and we still think that this is going to be the new normal, it is high time that we start thinking and rethink what to change. This is an opportunity to examine some outdated tendencies inherited by ourselves from the past. Our Indian schools specialize too much on the design part. Architecture is not an art. Architecture is not poetic. I'm trying to make a big statement here because we have all Indian architecture schools have always kind of stressed only on the aspect of design. But my friends, we must also understand that architecture is also a business. And we all joined architecture also to become entrepreneurs. So one part of the job description is to seek out solution in a creative way. Architects need to be hands-on involved with the problems of our time and see them as opportunity of change. That's the way profession stays relevant. In our schools, unfortunately, nobody talks about business life. To build a career as an architect, we need to speak about someone else's business and aspiration. We don't build just for ourselves. We are building because of somebody else's business or because of somebody else's aspiration. So we should understand the business life. We need to talk about business life. Economics, business, entrepreneurship, finance, strategic courses should be now part of our core curriculum. And therefore, education research must now support multidisciplinary approach to compare relevance of subjects like philosophy, anthropology, and economics only with structural systems and building materials is foolish to say the least. Are we in the business of creating global citizens, or are we into the business of creating blinkered race horses? We must understand that another aspect of poor education in India is also destructive criticism. And most of the students will immediately agree that the way our teaching accentuates is a very negative thing. Fear of making mistakes suffocates the possibility for emergence of experimental practices. And this we very commonly see during our juries. And therefore, normalizing unkindness can never mold good humans. Feedbacks must be constructive and objective according to the goals of the project. And this will become very important when you are going to go online teaching with your architecture students and also going in for your online juries. Because my friends, architecture education is different than the rest. Most students in the first 3 semesters are very seriously disoriented. It is important for academia to facilitate the students with a bigger picture of the learning path. The why and what for any exercise is as crucial as the process itself. I'm again repeating, the why and what for any exercise, any design exercise is as crucial as the process itself. Another method we can throw overboard is presenting anybody of knowledge as a body of facts and architectural theories as a process of criticism. Knowledge is presented in a retrospective way, an extensive exhibition of the work of an architect over time. Another popular mode we need to jump is to offer students hypothetical experiments in the form of design projects where many contextual variables are ignored. Most of the architecture institutions give hypothetical projects where contextual variables are completely ignored. There is a focus on offering ready-made interpretations of the built environment rather than developing the student's ability to explore issues associated with real-life conditions, which is often beyond the control of the students. And therefore, rethinking the modes of learning from everyday urban environment and focus on personal environment interaction as another opportunity. And this becomes even more important when the travel for case studies have become so risky. Now, most of our studies are supposed to be done online, talking to our mentor, talking to our guides, and most of the case studies also are not to be done actually by traveling to the actual site. And therefore, architecture education needs to assess actual learning experiences rather than the traditional carrot and stick grades approach. Another aspect in engagement with the fields like environmental psychology, disaster psychology, public health is going to be very important post-pandemic. We may incorporate a shift from large-scale construction projects to building adaptation, remodeling, retrofitting to accommodate emerging working and lifestyles into this pandemic world. And therefore today, we have before us a complete, unforeseen, unimaginative future. But we can't face the future with what we had inherited from the past. I'm again repeating, we can't face the future with what we have inherited from our past. And therefore, friends, as I end my presentation, I would like to say that I have today in my presentation only used some memes, because this is the only way I think the youth of today immediately connects to the issues. So I have only tried to draw attention to some of the systematic issues that calls for a rethink and a revisit. I think it is high time that the Council of Architecture in its wisdom can embark upon due deliberations on curriculum restructuring. It is really the need of the day that we very deliberately talk about restructuring our curriculums. Another very important focus is going to be on specially curated quality improvement programs for academician and practicing architects to enable and adopt major paradigm shifts. I think this is going to be more important. All the teachers also require a big paradigm change, and they cannot continue teaching with the same ideologies that they had before the pandemic. And therefore, there is a need of a very specially curated quality improvement programs for the teachers and prepare them for this big paradigm shift. And finally, to redefine the building codes towards relevant built environment for the future is the utmost need of the times. And I think with this little idea to all of you, I would like to end my presentation and ask you if you have any other questions. And I'm open to any questions that you may want to ask so that I can talk more about it. This presentation was only to provoke some questions in your mind through these memes. And I'm sure because I could understand that majority of you are students, and you, most of you would actually say that it's enough of online education. And most of you, I can talk about my institution when we already started offline education. Then they actually started reacting that no, online education was better. And now it's a debate with us just now in the present scenario, where when it was going online, the students wanted to come offline. And now we have started offline, students want to remain online. So the future is going to be the blended model of education. But with this few presentation of memes, I hope I have kind of created some questions in your mind so that you can ask me and we can talk on these questions.
Thank you, sir. That was a very informative session and equally entertaining as well. So now we move towards a discussion session, and we would like it to be a very interactive one. So please post your questions in the chat box, and I will be forwarding to sir. And I'll be starting off with the questions that we received through our Google Forms.
Yeah.
So one question was, how designing from macro to micro scale could be done in response to the pandemic, urban scale to community scale?
Yeah, this is quite an interesting question. And that is exactly what I also showed in the presentation, that suddenly we are rethinking the architecture theories that we were talking about. We are rethinking the cities that we were talking about. All this time we were talking about dense cities and walkable cities, and and suddenly this whole new term called social distancing. Can distancing be social, right? But it was something that was saying that keep people away from you. Do kos ki duri rakho, something like that. So all these years when we talk about inclusivity and trying to bring people closer, trying to blur the boundaries and from indoors to outdoors, trying to make our cities more compact, more walkable, right? Suddenly we came across this new word of social distancing. And we want now that there has to be more open spaces, there has to be do kos ki duri between the people. When you want do kos ki duri between the people, can you understand what should be the distance between the buildings and the spaces that people are going to use? So this is going to be a big change in our ideology. For so many years, of course, and that is exactly what is important, that when a pandemic like this comes, it not only changes the paradigms, but we actually have to now rework upon it. And that is where there's a need for great deliberation amongst the so-called elite of the society, so-called educators of the society, so-called the authorities of the society, and they will have to kind of relook at what theories existed in the past. And therefore, my last slide, as I mentioned, that we will not be able to solve this problem from the learnings of only of the past. We will have to look at the past learning with a very different view, with a very different ideology, and in a very different perspective, and accordingly design. So how it is going to impact is going to depend on, are we going to make some rule, changes in our code of practices? Are we going to make some changes in our city development plans? Unless authorities does not come into picture, government does not come into picture, educators do not come into picture. So ultimately, this is going to be a comprehensive model, which will take some time before we would be able to put our finger saying, okay, this is going to be the future way of how to deal with, as you say, the larger picture, the micro design or a macro design. But it is going to take a lot of interaction. So as of now, what is important is, can we actually start discussing where did we go wrong, how this can be understood, and if that was the theory which we were believing in 1.5 years ago, just for example, mass transportation, right? You name the planner that can you address, give one small suggestion that will help us having a sustainable tomorrow, and then he would immediately come up and say, let us stop our individual vehicles and start using mass transportation. Which transportation stopped the first was the mass transportation, right? Because we realize that it is a mass transportation that is the real carrier of disease, or real spreading of disease happened through mass transportation. And of course, I don't think in India or any other places we have other options than to continue mass transportation. But we also know that if for example, we have already gone through the second wave of corona. If we are anticipating the third wave of corona across the country, if you read the newspaper today, the government of India, especially the Prime Minister, especially mentioned focus on places where you have more number of coronaviruses and isolate them and avoid trans-city or intra-city transportation, right? So our whole idea of mass transportation itself is now challenged. But that does not mean that we say that mass transportation is not the call for the future, right? It is impossible to continue the way we had individual and the kind of negative impact that we created on the environment. Therefore, in the presentation, I said that all our heroism of trying to talk about environment went for a toss because of this pandemic. So, but that does not mean that we have to conclude that what we were doing was wrong. So we will have to find a new way out, that we do something that really does not have a negative impact on our environment. That means we will have to design mass transportation, but we cannot continue the way we were doing it in the earlier, where we were always overcrowded and the supply was always less than the demand and stuff like that. So that is where I'm talking about this big paradigm shift that we require, and we'll have to come out with a different model. As of now, at this stage, I doubt if anybody can pinpoint that, okay, this is going to be a solution. All this 1.5 years, I'm sure this so-called WhatsApp university must have taught us so many methods, right? I'm using this WhatsApp university because पहले किसी ने कहा कि आप steam लो तो कोरोना नहीं होगा, किसी ने कहा कि आप गार्गल करो तो कोरोना नहीं होगा, किसी ने कहा कि आप काढ़ा लो तो कोरोना, right? So there will be always immediate solutions to this problem, but we have to be very careful. If you read the newspapers now, it is this steam that people were taking, right, has caused mucormycosis. I'm sure you know that. It is this GADA that people have taken, and it has caused ulcer and problems of indigestion to so many people, right? So all this WhatsApp university methods, which immediately came up that as an ultimate solution, and I'm sure there were. I remembered a WhatsApp video trying to put गाय घी in the nose, गरम करके घी डालो तो कोरोना हो जाएगा. And then मैंने किया है, मेरे सारे परिवार ने किया है, right? एक बाबा ने आके बोल भी दिया कि कोरोना की दवा आ गई, right? फिर दूसरे दिन वापस की. So what I'm trying to tell you is, we should not try to look at immediate solution to this problem. We will have to wait, understand, assess, relook, right? Experiment, again relook, and this the way architecture has been evolving since so many centuries, and so many centuries. Similarly, whatever that will happen in response to this pandemic will have to be evolved through lots of experiences and experiments, and then ultimately one fine day we will be able to say that okay, this could be, again, nobody will say this is the method, but you can say this could be one way of addressing this whole pandemic of corona and be ready for another pandemic of something else. I tried to answer this little longer because I was just trying to say that it is impossible to come up with one solution as of now. It would be too early. I would be just one more Baba if I would say, okay, ye dawa le lo, ho jayega. Okay.
Okay, sir. Another question was, what are some key points to note for architectural students, especially the ones preparing for thesis and the ones going for site studies, to take into consideration considering the present situation of the pandemic?
आपको कौन सा आंसर चाहिए, स्टूडेंट सेंट्रिक चाहिए या टीचर सेंट्रिक चाहिए? तो मैं दोनों दे सकता हूँ, बिकॉज आई हैव अ डॉटर हु इज अ स्टूडेंट एंड आई एम अ टीचर. तो मैं जब यहाँ आता हूँ तो टीचर से अलग बात सुनता हूँ, और जब घर जाता हूँ तो अलग बात सुनता हूँ. तो मैं दोनों आंसर दे पाऊँ. एनीवे, this is going to be quite challenging. You know, what has happened is, I mentioned in my presentation, of course, I was trying to be as brief as possible, but I said most of the colleges give hypothetical projects. Unfortunately, most of the students also take hypothetical projects for their thesis. Right? What happens is, फलाना सेंटर इन से नागालैंड, फिर आप नागालैंड गए, नहीं गए, अब तो पेंडेमिक है, नहीं जा सकता. राइट? फलाना उसकी जगह पे केस स्टडी करने गए, नहीं जा सकता, ट्रैवलिंग अलाउड नहीं. बट देन व्हाई शुड यू सिलेक्ट अ प्रोजेक्ट which does not give you opportunities to study nearby? Why don't you select a site which does not? Why do you select a site which does not give you the opportunity to go and visit and understand the relevance of the design that you are going to do? So while you are going to do your thesis in the current scenario, try to understand. Most of the students are in the fantasy, you know, even training के वक्त भी वो fantasy में होता है कि ये 6 महीना मुझे जो ऑफिस ट्रेनिंग मिलेगा, मैं घर से बाहर जाऊंगा तो सूरत वाला पूना जाएगा और पूना वाला सूरत आएगा. They want to travel far off distances. And you take this opportunity of office training as an opportunity to get away from the family. Right? And it is happening. So similarly, you try to take your sites away from your hometowns as an opportunity to travel. Right? Okay. अभी मैं टीचर की तरह बोल रहा हूँ, हाँ. And so, if you are doing your thesis, now in the present scenario, even just now, if you go and tell your father कि मुझे केरला जाके साइट देखना है, तो वो कहेगा, केरला मतलब केरले वाले को तो अलाउ करेगा, आप समझो महाराष्ट्र में और केरल, तो आपका पापा बोलेगा अभी तू ट्रैवल क्यों करेगा, ट्रेन में क्यों जाएगा, you know. Why don't you take projects which are realistic, which are close by, which is possible that you can visit, it is possible that you can interact, because आप कोई भी प्रोजेक्ट करोगे, see the thesis का intention ये है that this is the parameters of the project, these are the requirements of the project, this is the site, this is the philosophy. Are you able to respond to it? So thesis is an opportunity to show it to your teachers that जो 9 semesters में मैंने सीखा है, वो एक सेमेस्टर में उसका ह्यूमन एस्पेक्ट से लेके, टेक्नोलॉजी एस्पेक्ट से लेके, डिजाइन एस्पेक्ट से लेके, प्रेजेंटेशन एस्पेक्ट, सारा मतलब ऑल से टेक्नोलॉजी एस्पेक्ट सारे को एक बंडल बना के मैं रिजॉल्व कर सकता हूँ और वो एग्जामिनेशन में अपीयर हो सकता हूँ. सो व्हेन यू टेक योर थीसिस, one thing I always tell my students, don't fall in love with your project. Right? Don't try to fantasize. Your project is not your boyfriend or a girlfriend that you are trying to find virtues in that. Right? ये प्रोजेक्ट मुझे अपील नहीं कर रहा है. अरे प्रोजेक्ट क्यों अपील करना चाहिए भाई? राइट? आपने किस दिन क्लाइंट को बोला कि ये प्रोजेक्ट मुझे अपील नहीं करेगा? हाथ जोड़ के ले लिया ना प्रोजेक्ट. सो ट्राई टू टेक अ प्रोजेक्ट फॉर योर थीसिस which gives you the opportunity to reflect what you have learned in these 9 semesters. This is very important, right? Unnecessarily वो romanticism create करते हो, so that आप कोई दूसरा पूछेगा कि क्या project लिया, और समझो कोई कहता है कि I took rehabilitation for drug de-addiction center. How boring, सब लेते हैं आप. You are not taking a project or not selecting a project because whether it is because your friend considers it boring. मगर नॉर्मली ऐसा होता है दिस एज, आप उसमें भी वो जिस तरह से फेसबुक पे लाइक चाहते हो ना, वैसा इसमें भी आप लाइक्स चाहते हो कि जब कोई मुझे पूछे कौन सा प्रोजेक्ट लिया तो 10 लोग बोले वाओ व्हाट अ प्रोजेक्ट, राइट? प्रोजेक्ट के टॉपिक से वाव नहीं होना चाहिए, प्रोजेक्ट के वर्क से वाव होना चाहिए. सो योर क्वेश्चन इज कि व्हाट शुड आई लुक फॉर? तो लुक फॉर द अमाउंट ऑफ कॉम्प्लेक्सिटीज दैट प्रोजेक्ट शुड हैव, and look for whether it will be feasible for you to actually experience and learn it yourself instead of just fantasizing it and dreaming for it.
Okay, sir. And this is a question we received at the meet. So Princy Shah has asked, we all know what presentation is more important in architecture.
Pardon?
We all know that presentation is more important in architecture, but is it more important than good design?
The question is that we know that presentation is important in architecture, but the question is that is presentation less important than design or something like that, right?
Yes.
It's a very tricky question, but let me tell you, right? हिंदी में कहता है जो दिखता है वो बिकता है, right? So अगर आपको कोई अच्छी डिजाइन बेचना है तो उसको दिखाना भी पड़ेगा, right? मगर सिर्फ दिखाने से बिकता भी नहीं है, मगर बिकने के बाद उसका इस्तेमाल भी होना चाहिए. सो ये स्टेटमेंट कैसा है? दे बोथ कॉम्प्लीमेंट ईच अदर. इफ यू आर अ वेरी गुड डिजाइनर बट यू कैन नॉट प्रेजेंट इट द वे इट इज अंडरस्टूड बाय योर क्लाइंट, राइट, हु इज गोइंग टू डू द प्रोजेक्ट, यू विल एंड अप बीइंग फ्रस्ट्रेटेड बिकॉज आप कहोगे कि मेरी डिजाइन इतनी अच्छी है कि क्लाइंट को समझ में नहीं आई. मुझे आपने कहा होगा, आपने सुना होगा, देयर आर मेनी आर्किटेक्ट्स हु आई विल नॉट कॉल देम फेलियर, बट एट द एंड फैग एंड ऑफ द लाइफ दे हैव नॉट डन इनफ प्रोजेक्ट, एंड उनको आप कहोगे कि भाई क्यों प्रोजेक्ट ज्यादा नहीं किया, बोले कि मेरी डिजाइन लोगों को समझ में नहीं आया. नाउ दैट इज द वे यू एक्सप्लेन, बट यू हैव फेल्ड टू रियलाइज दैट मे बी यू फेल टू कन्वे योर डिजाइन टू योर क्लाइंट्स और टू द पीपल अराउंड. सो वो एस्पेक्ट्स में प्रेजेंटेशन इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, राइट? बट दैट डज नॉट मीन कि अगर मैंने किसी क्लाइंट को अच्छा सा वॉक थ्रू बता के, मूवी बता के इम्प्रेस कर दिया, राइट? क्योंकि यू नो, आई एम श्योर बिकॉज यू ऑल आर्किटेक्चर स्टूडेंट्स दैट 3D व्यूज एंड वॉक थ्रूज आर सो इंटरेस्टिंग, बट व्हेन यू और एक ऑर्डिनरी गोदरेज का टेबल का अगर आप जो रेडीमेड मिलता है ना, बरसों से 100 साल से एक ही डिजाइन है, उसका भी आप वॉक थ्रू और वो बनाओगे ना मस्त मूवी, तो इतना इंटरेस्टिंग लगेगा, वाओ दिस इज गोइंग टू बी अनदर फ्रैंक लॉयड राइट टेबल. जब बन के आएगा बोले यार ये क्या बना दिया. सो सिमिलरली प्रेजेंटेशन इज नॉट एवरीथिंग. यू नीड अ गुड प्रेजेंटेशन टू गेट थ्रू फॉर एन अपॉर्चुनिटी टू वर्क, बट ultimately what matters is a good design. But this is a very tricky question to what was the name of the girl who asked?
Princy Shah.
Princy. Yeah, Princy. A good name. See, just नाम से मुझे लगता है कि this person must be quite princey like, you know. Anyways, just for a lighter side. But see how जैसे आप वो Princy, जब माँ बाप ने भी नाम रखा होगा तो मेरी बिटिया बड़ी होके प्रिंसेस जैसी बनी, प्रिंसी. So you always want to present it nicely, isn't it? So it's important. But that does not mean कि अगर आप कुछ भी नहीं करोगे लाइफ में तो प्रिंसेस जैसा लाइफ जियोगे. So what will matter is a good design, right? A good product that functions, that will serve the purpose. So design is important. But to say that this is more important and this is less important, rather I would say what is important is if you could complement both and be able to do good design, but also be able to present it properly so that it makes sense to the person seeing it and would buy your idea is also important.
Okay, sir. And this is a question from Rexactium Nisium. Sir, isn't COA should take measures to refine education at academic level? And how should we all bring about a revolution in the architecture world in India?
So there are two questions. First question is, should COA, ऐसा कुछ है? Should COA क्या है?
Like, isn't COA taking measures to refine education at academic level?
Isn't COA ऐसा कुछ है?
Yeah.
Yeah. COA, what happened? Yeah. So, okay. Isn't COA should take measure to refine education and academic and how should we bring about revolution? Okay, fine. The first part of the question is COA taking care of it? Yes, COA is doing great job. Let me tell you, in the current times, we are fortunate that we have an academician who is the president of Council of Architecture. You must be knowing architect Habib Khan, right? He is the president of Council of Architecture. And this is one of the most fortunate moments of Council of Architecture, right? Why I am trying to tell you is because he's not only an academician, but a person with great vision and the kind of changes that he's trying to bring in the academic scenario, in the kind of bylaws that could be framed. He's just now, Council of Architecture is restructuring the entire pedagogy of teaching in context to the new education policy 2020. So yes, Council of Architecture is doing great job just now to restructure education, not only in the context of NEP 2020, but also in the context of pandemic. The immediate response to the pandemic that Council was sending to all academic institutions, let me tell you, it was one of the most fastest response up till now that we had received from Council of Architecture. So the answer to the first point is that yes, Council is doing a great job. Secondly, how can we bring revolution, right? Why do you want to bring revolution? ये रिवॉल्यूशन क्या चीज है? बट ओके, यंग आदमी को लगता है जो होता है उसको बदल डालो, तोड़ डालो, ये पुरानी दुनिया खड़ी कर दो, ये नई दुनिया वगैरह वगैरह. Revolution is a very big word. Can we have a very progressive architectural history? Because whatever we are we have a great respect for our past built environment, right? जब भी कोई बात करता है हमको कोई भला बुला बोलता है हिंदुस्तानियों को, तो तुरंत हम 5000 साल की इतिहास पे आ जाते हैं. हम तुरंत मुगलों ने जो बनाया उसके ऊपर आ जाते हैं, तुरंत राजपूतों ने जो बनाया उसके ऊपर आ जाता है. मगर उसके बाद what did we do post independence? Are we saying anything? So why should we continue our architecture practices? And let me tell you, if you have your grandfathers or even very, very senior architects talking about architecture practice, then you realize that when they were practicing, there was great amount of concern and consciousness compared to what we are doing just now. Just now we are doing movies more like Govinda, instead of actually doing movies like Satyajit Ray or something like that. पूरा thinking बदल गया है. अभी हम कुली नंबर 1 और हीरो नंबर 1 पे ज्यादा हंसते हैं. हमारी प्रैक्टिस कुली नंबर 1 और हीरो नंबर 1 पे आ गया, आर्किटेक्चर नंबर 1 पे आ गई. We are just trying to mock at what we are doing. Let me tell you, our architecture practice just now is a mockery. So you can use it as architecture कुली नंबर 1, architecture number 1. तो रिवॉल्यूशन ने तो नहीं बहुत बड़ा बोल. Can we leave behind a legacy? What we are practicing just now is going to be the history tomorrow for our coming generation. Can we leave a good legacy behind that the future generation, right, can at least say, what you can say, pandemic के बाद जो development हुआ, जो architecture हुआ, वो बहुत sensible हुआ. जो सारी गलतियां थी उसी में से उन लोग ने कुछ सीखा, and वो गलती को अब ऐसा तो हो ही नहीं सकता कि गलती किए बगैर आप काम करो, मगर गलती करने के बाद वो गलती के ऊपर भी काम करके उसको नलीफाई करे या इसकी इफेक्ट को नलीफाई करे. There is also progressive. So maybe can we have a architectural profession which is very conscious, which is very ethical, which is very sensible and sensitive, right? Which is not simply signature architect कि मैंने बनाया है, 100 साल के बाद लोग याद रखेगा कि मिस्टर फलाना फलाना कान ने बनाया था, something like that. मगर बाजू में क्या था कि वो बाजू से मुझे कोई मतलब नहीं. तो maybe can we just leave behind a good legacy which is which may not be criticized in a negative way, if not very much appreciated in a positive way, but at least we can live a very positive, we can do something very positive now, which can be a very positive past in the future.
Okay, sir. And this is a question from Rashika Rena. Rashika asks, it isn't directly related to the webinar, but my question is, as the pandemic has created a lot of difference in the economy and the way people live, how will it affect the decision we make during selecting electives in the further semesters as we move forward?
बहुत बढ़िया. I am so happy with this question. But maybe Rashika, your question was that what should we consider while we select our electives in the further semester. But उसमें आपने कहा था connection with economy and all. अब economy को भी भूल जाओ. Right? Your selection for you further elective should be based on understanding that you must open up yourself for learning integrated education pattern or liberal education pattern. Because this pandemic has shown that only an architect cannot survive, only an architect who knows only about architecture cannot survive in this pandemic. Right? Imagine an architect who would know nothing, even little bit about virus or little bit nothing about infection. So now time has come where people have realized that while you are doing your core curriculum or a core course, you must try to learn something of the other courses also. So now most of the good institutions have adopted method of liberal education. So you have electives of other courses integrated with other courses. So you might have a student of architecture also learning legal subject like right to information, yeah, Indian constitution. Yeah, he would be also learning banking and insurance. कितने लोग ऐसे थे जो इस कोरोना के वक्त रियलाइज किया that their insurance was not taken seriously, that their investments were not taken seriously. They never took their बहुत पैसा कमाया, but they never realized कि उनको ऐसी जगह पे इन्वेस्ट करना चाहिए कि जब ऐसे वक्त पे पैसे की जरूरत हो तो लिक्विड क्रंच ना मिले और पैसे मिल जाए. तो आर्किटेक्ट बहुत बड़ा था मगर फाइनेंस हैंडल नहीं कर पाया, इसलिए तकलीफ में आ गया. तो काइंड ऑफ इलेक्टिव्स दैट यू शुड सिलेक्ट इज इन योर 10th सेमेस्टर कोर्स, ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड and learn beyond architecture. Don't keep on selecting your electives from your domain of architecture that you are already going to learn. And because you are becoming an architect, that means you are interested in learning more about architecture. That means you will read a lot of books on architecture and the peripheral subjects. So when you select your electives, my request as an architecture teacher is that don't keep on selecting subjects only of architecture, design and aesthetics and planning. Select elective subjects which is beyond the periphery of architecture. So that when you go out as a professional, when you go out as an entrepreneur, right, you have some basic understanding of the world, of the life. Because ultimately, architecture is what will earn your bread, but architecture is not just life. Life has much more to offer. So this elective will tell you, let me tell you, in this pandemic, there are a lot of people whose work was stopped. तो बहुत लोग ने किसी ने घर में क्लाउड किचन चालू कर दिया, राइट? किसी ने कुछ और बनाना चालू कर दिया, किसी ने आर्ट बना के पेंटिंग बनाना चालू कर दिया, बहुत लोग ने ऑनलाइन सर्विसेज चालू कर दी. Now this is called survival instincts. And this is where the Indian, I would say we are very good at, that is the jugaad. This elective should open up your opportunities of jugaad. This elective should open up your opportunities to survive what may come, right? And this elective should open up your vision for a more wider, holistic base of knowledge rather than just one aspect of architecture. So I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, sir. So this is a question from Akansha Shivale. How efficient do you think is the work from home system for professionals considering the practical approach required for this particular field?
Very good question. Now the world suddenly has a big paradigm change, and everywhere people are talking about work from home. The companies are actually saying that we are going to make smaller offices and have only 3 days a week work and 2 days you work from home. This is not a new concept. World over, and especially in the progressive country, I would say they were already utilizing this concept of work from home. And the finding is that the output is at least 20% more when you work from home. And that was the finding. Unfortunately, but when you say work from home, it comes with another requirement, and that is ethics, your credibility, and your integrity, right? फॉर एग्जाम्पल अभी ऑनलाइन टीचिंग का कोर्स चालू है. आपकी कॉलेज का फी होगा 2 लाख रुपया 3 लाख रुपया पर ईयर, आई एम श्योर, राइट? और आपकी कॉलेज आपको ऑनलाइन पढ़ा रही है. नाउ देयर इज वन मेथड इज दैट आई विल कीप माय कैमरा ऑन, आई विल लिसन टू द टीचर गिविंग मी लेक्चर एंड आई विल ट्राई टू लर्न. द another method is I will keep my camera off, I will be online, and I will continue playing with my friends somewhere outside, or I'll completely doing social media on a mobile. So all this work from home, online way of teaching or online way of working will work only when you have people with integrity, ethics, and appropriate response and appropriate urge to do something. दोनों बाजू वो चाहिए. So work from home can only function where this word of credibility comes from both sides. But if you have this credibility, if you have this ethics, then work from home is a better concept, because it also minimizes traveling. It also minimizes creating huge infrastructure for people. Like for example, अगर 100 लोग का क्लासरूम बनाना है तो आप 50 का क्लासरूम बनाओ और ब्लेंडेड करके 50% आज वर्क होम से करे पढ़े, 50% क्लासरूम. So that means you are also creating lesser infrastructure. So in that sense, work from home or learn from home is a win-win situation. And this pandemic has shown that to us. What we will all have to collectively decide that I will try to take advantage of this, right? But if you refuse to take advantage, if you refuse to take learning from this pandemic, you will go back to square one, right? Where you started pre-pandemic. Then you will soon realize that work from home or learn from home is a disaster. But let me tell you, there is no solution but to adopt to this blended way of working or blended way of learning. So earlier the better. Let us adopt this system, let us learn this system, and let us follow this system ethically. Then this will give us better results. Imagine आधा मुंबई जो रोज लोकल ट्रेन, आपने मुंबई के फोटोग्राफ्स तो देखे होंगे, राइट? लोकल ट्रेन, इमेजिन एटलीस्ट आधे से ऊपर लोग जो कंप्यूटर बेस्ड काम करते हैं, जो सॉफ्टवेयर बेस्ड काम करते हैं, जो अकाउंट्स बेस्ड काम करते हैं, जिसको पीसी पे ही काम करना है, राइट? वो घर से एथिकली 6 घंटा काम करके बैठे और उनको घर पे जाने, ऑफिस पे जाने की जरूरत ना पड़े. 50% ऑफ दोज आर नॉट ट्रैवलिंग. डोंट यू थिंक आपने आधा प्रॉब्लम तो वहीं सॉल्व कर दिया? बट we will have to understand that this is the method of future, and we will have to adopt it wholeheartedly.
Okay, so I guess that was the end of our discussion session today. So now, as we move towards the end of this wonderful section we had, I would like to invite Simran Hande, co-founder of 361, to give the vote of thanks.
Before he gives the vote of thanks, let me compliment you, because it's exactly 12 o'clock, and as promised to me by Mrinay that we'll be having a 1-hour function. So I think that's quite a great time management. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Shabrinath. Your efforts for keeping this seminar so much interactive was like really great, and it's a pleasure to have you here today. I want to express our gratitude to Percy sir for putting light on the current situation and opening up to new perspectives to see the things in an optimistic manner. On behalf of all the participants, I would like to extend my gratitude to you, sir. We are much honored to have you here today. Sir, we are certain that your words must have ignited tons of ideas and solutions among our viewers. that spark which is actually needed in this situation. A constant workforce is always demanded for the event like this, and for that we have been fortunate enough by our very motivated and dedicated team 361-bit. We are proud that we were able to reach so many people across India. Thank you, team, for making this seminar a great success. Last but not the least, I am immensely grateful to our beloved audience for giving us an opportunity to make this all happen. It was really great to have you here today. And that's all. Stay safe and keep exploring. Over to you, Shabrina.
Thank you, Siddhant. That was beautiful. And thank you, our audience, for attending our seminar today. And this is the end of today's section. So keep hustling and keep innovating. All the best.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to interact with so many young people on this Sunday morning. And I started with saying that the future of India is ensured because the young people have taken the reins in their hand. And to see so many young people attending a webinar like this on a Sunday morning, right?
Yes.
While most of the youth are still sleeping because for them it's not even morning on Sunday. So to see so many young people in front of their cameras, in front of their monitors, trying to learn something, whatever. You know, sometimes even the learning is 5%, but even that 5% learning has happened. So for this, I will compliment all of you for being online just now and participating in this webinar. A big compliment to 361-bit for arranging this. Thank you so much for calling me. Thank you so much.
We are honored, sir.
All the best and wishing you all a great future.
Thank you,
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye, sir.